All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I appreciate your coverage of a really important meeting that we're so proud to host here in Providence, Rhode Island today. I'm Brett Smiley, the Mayor of Providence. I'm also the co-chair of the United States Conference of Mayors, Mayors and Police Chiefs Task Force. My fellow co-chair is Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer, and he and I have the opportunity to lead the conference's work in strengthening what is perhaps the most important relationship between a mayor and a city employee, which is the mayor and his or her police chief. Given that public safety is a priority for all of America's cities, we're pleased to bring together today 22 mayors from throughout New England and 19 police chiefs for a New England convening of mayors and police chiefs. We've got strong participation from mayors in Connecticut, Massachusetts, the new mayor of Burlington, Vermont, the mayor of Portland, Maine. Every state is represented except New Hampshire today, and almost everyone has brought their chief with them. And we're so grateful that they've taken the time to come to Providence today to share best practices, to talk about solutions to some of our most pressing challenges. I'm in a minute going to introduce Mayor Mitchell from New Bedford, who will say a few words, and then any of the mayors behind me will be available to take questions. But speaking on behalf of all of our mayors, we know that strengthening our city's public safety means strengthening our cities. It is remarkable that when we spend time together, we realize that we're facing so many shared challenges. And so whenever we have the opportunity to share solutions, it makes all of our cities better. Today's topics will include reducing gun violence, the challenge of recruiting police officers in today's environment, and then how to better retain and properly train them. We're going to talk about policing in the midst of the new and current federal environment. We're going to address the rise in hate crimes and extremism and share solutions on how to better combat that. And then talk about innovative strategies with respect to the opioid and overdose crisis, which is a nationwide challenge that often falls to mayors and police departments to try to deal with. And so we're very pleased with the ability to bring together national experts, have our colleagues report out on successes in their cities. And I'll say that the time that I've spent with the Mayor's Conference, whether it's in the panels themselves or in the hallways in between, the amount of problem solving and collaboration and communication that we do amongst ourselves and that the chiefs do amongst themselves helps provide meaningful solutions, whether it's access to new resources, training opportunities, ways in which we can go visit one another's cities and implement strategies, is time well spent. And so again, we're grateful that we've had the chance to convene here in Providence today. And on behalf of my police chief, Colonel Oscar Perez, and myself, we want to thank everyone for their partnership in making a safer and stronger city. Despite some of the rhetoric in the recent federal election, crime in cities across America is down. And so I'd like to ask the mayors who are behind me to raise their hand. If crime in your city is down over the last 4 years, please raise your hand. Gun violence, murders, nonviolent crimes are down across America because the strategies that we're employing are working. Providence is particularly proud to be a leader in community policing. We've been ahead of the curve in community policing, and just this morning we've heard some stories about chiefs who came to Providence years ago to shadow our department. But we don't have all of the answers, and so we're here today to both share some of our successes, but to listen to successes in other cities. Mayor of Hartford just presented. Mayor Dion will be presenting soon. The mayors across New England are leading the way to make safer cities, and today is about sharing those successes and taking back important learnings to our communities. One of those mayors who will be moderating a session today and who's been both a great mayor and a leader in public safety is Mayor John Mitchell of New Bedford, who I'd like to invite up to say a few words now.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Smiley. Great to see so many familiar faces here today. I wanted just to thank you, Mayor, for hosting today. This is a really important session. I'll offer up a couple of thoughts about why I think that is. I also wanted to recognize the conference's executive director, Tom Cochran, who's here today, reflecting the fact that this is a very important conference. as well as the staff support that we got from Laura Waxman, and of course our president, Andy Ginther, the mayor of Columbus, a very important supporter of this event as well. So, this is for all of you here in the media, this is an interesting window into the work of mayors, into the work of cities. Everything that we do is based on a foundation of public safety. Kids can't get a good education, neighborhoods cannot be enjoyed, and investors will not invest if they don't think your city's safe, and if it isn't in reality safe. And so we're focused on this as we have to be. And so conferences like this help us understand better what we need to do going forward. And so I just offer three discrete points about why it's important and how we do the work. So as Mayor Smiley noted, there's a whole lot of good news out there. Crime is down, despite contrary rhetoric out there at the national level that's not grounded in fact. Crime is down across the board. It's down more in some regions and down more in some cities. We in New Bedford are proud to say that in the last decade, we've seen a 58% drop in violent crime. When our numbers come out again for 2024, we'll see that down further still. I want to acknowledge our chief, Paul Oliveira, who's here today, who's headed up so much of that effort over the years. So crime is down, but we're gathering. And so here's the point. We're gathering because we're not resting on our laurels. We understand, mayors understand, police chiefs understand that the lid can boil off, the top of the pot can boil off at some point. And so we want to stay ahead of trends, whether they relate to opioids, whether they relate to juvenile crime, whether they relate to trends in gun violence. So that's point one. We are trying to get better despite clear objective success in the last few years. The second thing that's really important about this conference is that it's regionally grounded. We experience crime, Americans experience crime differently in different regions. There are gun laws in New England that are very different from the rest of the country. The gun culture in New England, by and large, is very different from the rest of the country. There are different types of drugs here that are more prevalent than other places. For instance, methamphetamine is more prevalent in other parts of the country. Opioids here more prevalent. So we have to, it is really useful for us to compare notes about what we're doing in this general neck of the woods. The last thing I'll just say, and this picks up on something that Mayor Smiley said, is that the relationship between police chief and mayor is the most important relationship for a mayor, the most important relationship for a police chief, the most important relationship for a city. You have to be on the same page. You have and opportunities like this to sort of bounce stuff off of counterparts, because the reality is that mayors are sort of by themselves in their cities. There isn't another mayor around, and the same goes with police chiefs. Both putting us in the same room is good group therapy for starters, but it's also a great way to hone strategy. That's what we're doing today. I'll just say in the case of Chief Oliveira and I, 15 years ago, when I was an assistant United States attorney in Boston, and he was a detective in New Bedford, we were working cases together. So we know how one another thinks, and I think that has helped us over the years think about strategy and get stuff done. And so today we've got a lot of work upstairs to do today, but Mayor, this has been off to a great start, and we're all going to get a lot out of it. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell. I'd like to just acknowledge the Rhode Island mayors who are participating today. Mayor Grebian and his chief, Mayor De Silva and his chief, Mayor Beauchamp and his chief, and Mayor Rivera and her chief. There's strong Rhode Island participation today as well. We're grateful for their partnership. It's easier for us to have regular dialogue on a daily basis than some of our colleagues further along, but I'm really glad that they're here and participating as well. We talk about the relationship between the chief and the mayor. My relationship with our chief here in Providence is exceptional. He's both a trusted partner, a well-respected member of the community, and has become a good friend. Colonel Oscar Perez would like to invite to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to welcome you all, and actually it's a privilege to have and host my fellow chiefs and also mayors, both locally and regional. I think that it's important for us to have this type of meetings and conferences. Great conversations, great ideas to share. I think both mayors and our Mayor Smiley mentioned about the foundation and the challenges that we have with public safety. And so when we meet each other, we get to express and highlight some of the great work that we're doing in the city of Providence. and we get to highlight some of the great work that the men and women of the Providence Police Department is doing to keep gun violence down. It's the same topics. It's gun violence, it's recruiting and retention, it's opioid crisis, and I think that it's important for us being so close to each other that we interact, as many times we have the same issues, same people committing the same crimes. And so it is a privilege for us. I'm happy that Providence Police is hosting and being here and gets to highlight all of the work that we're doing. I want to thank all the mayors again and my fellow chiefs for being here, and thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Be happy to take questions.
Mayor, you talked about the federal environment.
Yes.
What are your thoughts going into this, and what do you hope will come out of this?
I'll speak for myself. The last 2 weeks have been both stressful and exhausting, trying to react to sometimes contradictory guidance. For example, with the funding freeze that was frozen and unfrozen and refrozen and now maybe uncertain. We are trying to stay abreast. The Mayor's Conference, Mayor Mitchell rightly pointed out the incredible support that we received from Tom Cochran and his staff. The Mayor's Conference has been communicating with us frequently about new executive orders and such. We're certainly going to be having conversations both in the room and then in the hallways today about immigration enforcement throughout our cities. Providence is proud to be a welcoming city, but at the same note, we are very conscious of the threats to federal funding, which we think will only make our cities less safe. And so we are going to be advocating to ensure that federal law enforcement funding, things like COPS grants that all of us rely on, that have in fact yielded positive results. We have the reason that so many hands went up and the reason that crime is down is because we are investing in our police departments and in community partners. And so if they start to threaten things like federal grants to law enforcement and other public safety grants, that will make our cities less safe. And so while there's still a fair amount of uncertainty about what will or won't happen, it's only week 2, it's certainly something that we're trying to stay abreast to, and we're trying to speak with one voice as America's mayors that federal support for public safety has yielded results, and at the local level we know what's best for our community, and our communities can continue to bring those crime rates down if we can sustain that level of support that we received in the past.
Is Mayor Pagello here from Salem? I am. Just a question for you, sir. Sure. Salem has been, as a city and a community, been particularly proactive in the war on the opioid epidemic. I wonder if you could detail some of the successes and some of the unique aggressive postures you've taken towards not interdiction, but actually working with the community.
Thanks for that question. First, my thanks to Mayor Smiley for convening this meeting into the U.S. conference, for the opportunity to be here. Salem's taken a very intentional effort around peer recovery support and working with the community to make sure that people have access to services that they may require and providing support through our community partners. And just to echo the point around federal funding, the partnerships we have with the state and federal level is critical to continuing that work. So we see the need to invest in those programs as critical to keeping our community safe as well.
Is any one particular aspect of it been successful or more successful?
I think the peer recovery work, trusting the people that have lived experience to work with folks that are struggling with these challenges and relying on our community partners. We can't do it alone as a city. Relying on the community impact unit and our police department has been very important for us.
Thank you.
If I may, Steph Machado with the Boston Globe. I'm trying to understand sort of where everyone stands on their policies when it comes to cooperating with ICE. I know Providence has a policy that they don't ask suspects for their immigration status. They don't honor administrative detainers from ICE, but they do honor criminal warrants, and the colonel can correct me if I have that wrong. Does anyone have a different policy in your city in how you operate with ICE? No?
Looks like
Mayor,
consensus.
it looks like you kind of wanted to say something.
I don't.
Okay. Would you mind, Mayor, how do you handle it in Portland?
I
It was the-
subscribe.
I need you in front of the microphone if you don't mind. Thanks.
My chief's saying, I knew this would happen. Listen, we subscribe to the principles that you outlined in terms of our engagement with ICE. I think a particular concern in Portland, when adjusted for scale, we're the 10th busiest city in terms of receiving new Americans. So for me and my staff, we've been working on trying to have everyone take a breath to restore some sense of calm as we evaluate where the federal government's going, because they're really chaotic. They don't know how to slow their own roll, and then when they get in too deep, they withdraw. So I'm trying to make sure that we don't have people having an emotional panic in the city of Portland, people that live in communities that feel threatened even before this administration is here.
Do you have sort of an official ordinance on the books detailing how you cooperate with ICE?
We do.
And what does it say?
I'm not going to quote it line and verse. I'm an attorney, but I'm always cautioned, don't be an attorney, you're a mayor. So I'll be a mayor for a moment. I mean, the role outlines that we won't ask for your papers. Just that phrase alone draws concern. We don't establish your nationality, origin in our work. We don't hinder or obstruct federal authorities from carrying out their duties. And if there's a point of contact, it occurs at the office of sheriff in terms of the detention, and that's where detainers or other matters of documents are resolved. So the sheriff has a real challenge here to try to balance those issues. We're not going to raid. We've communicated with the special agent in charge of Boston for the FBI to make sure that our officers who are currently deputized as U.S. Marshals on Special Task Force will not be dragooned into working with the federal government on immigration enforcement issues. So we're trying to carefully draw a boundary, but honor our responsibility. And as a former police officer and a sheriff, I took an oath. I'll enforce the law and make sure people are safe. But that line is a tough one to manage, but we're trying to do that.
Are you or anyone else worried about losing grants, whether it's cops
Yes.
grants, for the way that you
Of
handle
course,
it?
I've already done a financial assessment. I called it my damage control report to see where we were vulnerable and what we would do in response to that. There are many of our sources that I don't think are in jeopardy, but I think it's incumbent in my due diligence to assess all possible vulnerabilities. So that's been done. And we're also developing protocols for our social service workers to manage their interaction with these communities within the city of Portland to make sure we can do it effectively and in a manner that doesn't necessarily draw the attention of the federal government. I want business to be as normal as possible, and I'm doing everything as mayor, as is my team, to assure that's the case for the people who call Portland home. That's what I'm defending.
Question for the room. Mayor Dion, you talked about, telling the fear with people with ICE and everything and having a larger presence right now. Has any mayor or police chief dealt directly with ICE raids in their city at this point in the Trump administration? Chief Prince, specifically you, any action in Providence with ICE?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as we don't get notified, as I stated before, we have a policy in place. They have a job to do and we have ours, but no, nothing that we have been involved with. Like I said, they got their job, we got ours, and we got a policy. We stick by it. We don't, as you mentioned, Steph, we don't ask for legal status. There's a way that we act, especially if it's criminal activity, but other than that, no.
You're not aware of them?
Eres un español también para la comunidad en cuanto a lo que ustedes como ciudad aquí también qué agrega a todas estas nuevas políticas migratorias en cuanto a desafíos para que ustedes aseguren la seguridad de la gente pero también mantengan la confianza de la comunidad ahora mismo con todo lo que está pasando.
So the question is, as far as like the police department, if we can say it in Spanish, as far as what it is that's going on with these immigration issues and how the police department operates. En su respuesta realmente es que como jefe de la policía, el Departamento de Inmigración tiene su trabajo para hacer, nosotros tenemos de nosotros, tenemos una policy que está efectuada en el momento y una distinción verdaderamente que hay formas administrativas del Departamento de Inmigración y algo criminal. Entonces cuando tiene que ver con algo criminal firmado por un juez, ahí es donde nosotros actuamos más que todo, pero como jefe de la policía yo quiero que la comunidad entienda que el trabajo de nosotros no es en ningún momento ser oficiales de inmigración. So the answer to that pretty much was that we have policies in place, there is a distinction, and sometimes when the immigration office or department has administrative investigations, we don't get involved with that. There is criminal investigations that sometimes they'll ask for our assistance, but it has to do with criminal activity. But we do have a policy in place, and as chief of police, I want to make sure that our community understands that we're not and will never be immigration officers.
Is it possible that public trust,
Pardon?
and maybe other mayors can answer too, like maybe Bridgeport, Hartford, in terms of maintaining how these new policies are adding an additional layer to keep that public trust.
And my police chief's here as well, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Mayor Joe Ganneman. It's my pleasure and honor to be with so many mayors and police chiefs together. Certainly the communications element of what's going on with immigration and interaction between local police and federal authorities is a topic, and I think clear, accurate, as some of the mayors have articulated, is critically important. I just want to say this though. We're here, we've gathered with, I don't know how many mayors and police chiefs together, and that's one topic. But a lot of us have been around the block or through multiple administrations on a federal level. We're here as part of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which is a bipartisan organization, and we've set goals and priorities again this year, as we've done every year. They include a partnership, a strong partnership, and working with the federal government. As a result, you've heard today of through those partnerships, whether it's JAG grants or COPS grants, and the overall effectiveness of making sure that not only the perception, but as the mayor said before, the reality in our cities is to make them the safest cities that we can. That's kind of what we're focusing on. Immigration is a part of it. It's a part of everyday challenges, and we'll work through that in our city and ensure and protect our residents. But the big picture today is to make sure that we have a clear focus with the police chiefs and the mayor speaking with one voice on what we need. Part of it is to continue strong partnership with the federal government on funding as well. So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
Is there any policy in place for police officers that may have their own views and might go rogue behind the policy of the department of not cooperating with ICE? What if an officer on their own views just decides to make a quick call, notch, there's these people here? How do you guys handle that?
So for Providence, we have a policy in place, and we stick by that policy. We hold people accountable based on that policy. We got a lot of it. And when you take the oath to protect and serve, and to march in orders, that's what you do, and that's what it is. I mean, obviously, if somebody is that concerned, but we have policies in place, and they have to be followed.
Can something happen?
The city council, real quick, the city council ordinance that wants to detail how your department deals with ICE, do you support or oppose that?
Sure.
So the Providence City Council has proposed, but has not yet put through the process, a policy with respect to cooperation with ICE. Right now, we feel strongly that our existing policy, which predated the Trump administration, is the right policy. That's what we're enforcing. The proposed ordinance in most ways models that policy precisely. However, there's some issues with the draft ordinance that are irrelevant. There's some references to prisons. We don't run prisons. There's some other issues that it feels like it was maybe model legislation taken from somewhere else. And so that's going to find its way through the city council committee process. But the intent of the ordinance is what our existing policy already is. And so we don't have an objection to the intent of the ordinance, but as drafted, there's some issues that need to be resolved.
Could federal enforcement happen without the mayors knowing, or without the police chief knowing?
It's possible. It is possible that, I speak for Providence at least, that ICE could operate in Providence without notifying us. That has not been the past practice, but it is entirely possible. And to speak to the earlier questions around fear and concern, I know it's true for the other Rhode Island mayors with whom I've spoken, and I imagine it's true for the other mayors around the region. At this moment in time, we're expending a tremendous amount of energy chasing down rumors. Every time there's a black SUV in the city that somebody doesn't recognize, there's a rumor that it's an ICE raid. That has not happened in the city of Providence in the last 2 weeks, as far as we know. And so we understand the fear and the concern. We take that seriously. I want every resident of my city to feel safe and to know that they're in a city where they are welcomed. I also want to make sure that every resident in our city feels like they can trust and work with the Providence Police to help keep them safe. And so we do take those rumors seriously, but to date, there has been no federal raids in the city of Providence. I know several of us are happy to stick around with offline questions. I welcome any questions on topics other than immigration, just to make sure we cover the full breadth of today's agenda before we have to go back upstairs.
Can we talk about homeless encampments?
Sure.
As you know, we had at least 4 people in Providence die in recent weeks while experiencing homelessness. I'm sure other mayors have experienced this as well. And the policy right now is to put in a 30, 60-day notice and say you'll have to vacate. But mostly they don't find housing and they move to other places, maybe into a neighboring city. Is that a sustainable model? And is that something that we're just going to be suffering through for the next bunch of cold months?
Yeah, so as you know, I'm starting my third year as mayor right now, and in my tenure, we have had deaths, overdose, acts of violence, fires, a particularly disturbing trend of sexual assault, all in encampments. It is my strong opinion that encampments are not safe and are not suitable for people to live in. At the request of advocates for the unhoused, we have implemented a 30-day notice prior to clearing encampments, and that has given folks the time to work with caseworkers funded by the city to find other placements. As you know, we've made additional emergency warming shelters available in the city, and on any given night there are beds available or space available. If it's an emergency warming center, of course, it's not a bed. In the city of Providence, there are 3 emergency shelters, not counting the warming centers. And we believe that that is a safer, more suitable place in emergency circumstances than encampments. And so that will remain our policy as we work to expand shelter capacity, housing options, both transitional and long-term housing, and is a challenge that we're all facing. But trying to balance the interests of the safety of those impacted, it is impossible for us to keep people safe in encampments. They are not a suitable solution in the city of Providence. We're happy to continue to receive feedback on ways to evolve our policy like we did with the 30-day notice, but long-term encampments in Providence are not an option.
Can I speak to the mayor for
Sure. Pat, can we hold on one second, Olivia?
Yeah, I just had a question about sustainability. The federal government is cutting a lot of positions at federal agencies that deal with sustainability, such as EPA, NOAA, USGS, a bunch of them. How are you all together as mayors talking about curbing emissions or doing what you can to sort of step up and fill this void? Are you talking about it, and can we work together regionally on an issue like this?
So maybe Mayor Mitchell wants to, Mayor Mitchell, of course, the city of New Bedford's been a leader in wind energy. I will say the U.S. Conference of Mayors supporting us, part of the reason that I'm so actively engaged, has been working overtime to keep up with all of the changes and cuts that are occurring right now, and our concern today is to share best practices with respect to public safety, but that is not the only thing that's keeping us up at night, and perhaps Mayor Mitchell wants to speak, particularly as a leader in wind energy.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. A lot to unpack. I'll just make a bit of a general observation about some of the announcements. We don't know which federal employees are going to be laid off or riffed or otherwise let go. We hear the rumors, and as a group, and we've talked a lot about this, we can't be in the business of reacting to every outrageous statement the president makes. It happens on a daily basis, and what we have to react to is real governing decisions, things that have the force of the law. So we know, so that's just point one. I don't know what NOAA or the EPA or USGIS or any other agency is going to look like tomorrow or a month from now, but we'll take it as it goes. We have our priorities. One of our priorities as mayors, just in general, is to continue to reduce our carbon footprints. We have climate action plans in place, just about all of us, and we continue to execute on them. Obviously, the federal government plays a major role in our success toward those goals. And whether it's we're talking about offshore wind or some other set of renewables the federal government is instrumental in. We've been through this before. So this is the second Trump term in office, not the first. And the first, there was a clear retrenchment at the federal level and the United States' commitment to things like the Paris Accord that the Trump administration pulled out then and pulled out again last week. There will be other actions, we presume, like that over the course of the next 4 years. Our job as mayors is to continue to talk about climate, to continue to reduce our reliance on fossil fuel generated electricity in particular, to decarbonize our fleets, to encourage our residents to do the same, and to continue to plug away. We're not going to be as successful without the federal government as a partner, but that doesn't mean we're just raising the white flag. We're continuing to work on climate.
With Providence taking over the
Mr. Mayor, can I respond to this issue? Sure. Yesterday, we joined, I'm Tom Cochran, the CEO and Executive Director of U.S. Conference Mayors. Yesterday, we joined an amicus brief with the Sabin Center in New York City to prevent the freeze of money that's been granted to us in climate. So we have press conferences, we lobby, but we also have the courts. So we are in that suit, and I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Portland, please.
I'll defer to the mayor. Do you have time?
If you're willing, yeah.
Well, actually, no, this is a Portland-specific question.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely.
Who are you?
My name is Kevin Portland with the Coalition Radio Network, and our charity has actually supported homeless encampments in South Portland, for example. In December of 2023, an order went out, December 27th, 26th of 2023, an order went out to clear the homeless encampment at Harvard Memorial Park. Providence is cold. Portland's really cold. On top of that, I guess
Never noticed.
a law like this in Portland that prohibits, and we'll quote air quotes, camping, which is clearly aimed at homeless populations. How many shelter beds are there in Portland versus perceived demand, and to what extent is Portland involved in supporting the homeless community?
The camp you referred to is in South Portland. There is an ordinance in Portland that prohibits public camping. Is it geared at the homeless? One could draw that conclusion. I ran for mayor on a simple premise that safety is job one for the city, and I had to clear the encampments. But in supporting that, as some see that as tough love, we built a $25 million homeless services center with wraparound medical, social, and housing staff there to deal with the population that needs that help. I don't want them to freeze. I want them in a shelter. I want the police to do what they can and our behavioral health team to get them off the sidewalks and out of the parks. We've also built an immigration reception center shelter. We have a family homeless shelter. We're supporting over 600 individuals every night. I have more staff working on social services than I do in the police department. That's the priority we put on it. The operation budget is over $12 million for the homeless service shelter. We have a contract for another 100 beds for daytime and evening time warming space because we can't control the weather in Maine, though I pray I could. Right, so the citizens of Portland have voted time and time again that we are to take a humanitarian approach, but maintain the peace and protect order in public spaces. And that's what we've done, and that's what I'll continue to do.
How many beds total?
That's about 600 beds, and then with the warming shelter, that's probably about 680.
All right, we have time for one last question. Steph?
Would any of the mayors speak to your DEI policies in your city? Are you considering changing them, strengthening them, getting rid of them in light of the sort of threats from the Trump administration?
I can speak to Providence's plan. So, DEI is embedded in what we do, and we don't intend to change that. We serve a diverse community. We employ a diverse workforce. Our customers are of diverse backgrounds, are multilingual, and we're proud of that fact. Our employees are multilingual and of diverse backgrounds, and so this is integrated into what we do. There's nothing to defund because it is part of our daily practice. It's part of our employment practice. It's part of our customer service practice, and it will continue to do so. This is one of these things coming down that we don't exactly know what it means. Mayor Mitchell talked about the fact that we can't control what's going to happen tomorrow or next month or next year, and we will continue to adapt and react to whatever the latest federal letter, response, executive order might be. But here in the city of Providence, this is part of our daily employment and customer service practices. It's not going to change, and we don't feel like we need to make those changes right now. We don't believe it's exactly what's being intended, and that it might be rhetoric that's meant to fire up a certain base, but it's not relevant to the day-to-day functioning of our city, and that's how we're going to treat it here in Providence, and I think we can leave it at that for now.
With ICE threatening to go into schools all over the country, how is the Providence now taking over the schools at some point? How are you guys gonna tell parents your kids are safe?
Yeah, so I'm gonna finish with this, and this is the last question. As you know, the City of Providence does not currently run our schools. The state does, the Rhode Island Department of Education, in partnership with the Rhode Island Attorney General, has put out clear guidance to both parents, educators, and students about what their rights are, about what information is and is not shared. We do not collect immigration status on our students, and teachers and school building officials have been trained on what to do if ICE were to arrive at the schools. That has not happened, and we will continue to defer to the guidance from the Attorney General, and be happy to share that information with you if you don't have it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.